The Mini Trapper was the first case knife that I ever bought. In this video, I want to talk about why I think it's about the best case knife for a beginner to buy. When someone is thinking about getting into the traditional knife world, it can be a little overwhelming, especially when they start looking at a company like Case. Because Case makes tons of different knives and tons of different patterns. You not only have different patterns, you got different number of blades, you got different blade steels, you got different handle materials, and all the history that backs up the different patterns, and it can seem very overwhelming. Now, Case makes tons of great knives, and I like so many of their knives, but when I think to myself, what is the best knife for a beginner? There are a few knives that might come to mind, but one of them that I think does not get near enough attention is the Mini Trapper. The one exception I want to say is the Sodbuster Jr. The Sodbuster Jr. is a great knife, I believe, for anybody, anywhere, at any time, no matter where you live, what kind of job you do, your age, or anything else. The Sodbuster Jr. is a great knife for everybody, for all time. But there are a few things that I think make the Mini Trapper maybe even a little better option than the Sodbuster Jr. for somebody who's looking for their first case knife. The Sodbuster Jr. would be a great second. But in this video, I want to talk about a few of those things. We're going to look at the Mini Trapper and go over some of its basic stats and so on. And then after we've done that, we're going to take a look at why I think it's such a great knife, and we're going to compare it to some other knives that are also great. The pattern number for the Mini Trapper is the 07 pattern, and it is the smaller version of Case's full-size 54 Trapper, which we shall compare shortly. But for the moment, let us notice the size. When the knife is closed from one bolster to the other, it is 3.5 inches. The overall width of the knife is somewhere around 3/8. That's going to vary depending on your handle material and whether it's a pocket-worn knife or not. Your main blade, the cutting edge on the main blade, is going to be about 2 3/8 inches, and the same is true for the spay blade. They're just about the same size. The overall weight of the Mini Trapper is going to be somewhere between 2.50 ounces and 2.60 ounces, depending again on your handle material and blade choices, such as that. Some interesting characteristics of the Mini Trapper. First off, it has the classic trapper shape. You've got your round bolster on one end, your squared off bolster on the other end, with a pinch on the end. That is classic Case Trapper. Because of that, it's a very comfortable knife to hold in the hand, because this rounded section sets in the rounded part of your hand. As with all other trappers, it's a jackknife. Both blades are going to open on the same end. You're going to notice that it has 2 back springs. You're going to have a brass liner surrounding the back springs on every side, one down the middle and one on either side, going to the nickel-silver bolsters and to the bone. You'll also notice that that liner down the middle comes all the way up through the knife, as you can see. Now, this is an interesting characteristic, and it's common among Case's jackknives, but it makes the knife really strong, but it also makes it a little heavier. This is a 2-bladed knife, and it's about 3.5 inches. Case's 18 pattern Stockman is their 3-bladed competition for the Mini Trapper. One of the closest competitors besides maybe the 032 pattern. But you can see it's got 3 blades as a traditional Stockman. It's got a center liner, but that center liner is just down by the springs. It doesn't come up through the handle. And because of that, a Stockman normally weighs a little less than does a Mini Trapper. These come in around 2.30 to 2.40, where this comes in 2.50 to 2.60. I don't believe that's enough to ever know it in your pocket, but it is an interesting thing to note. The Mini Trapper is also unique because it's going to have half stops. Most of Case's knives don't have half stops, but they have a few versions that do, and almost any knife they have that has half stops is usually going to be a jackknife of some sort. The half stop is where the blade snaps into place at a 90-degree position. If I go to open or close a Sodbuster Jr., it's smooth all the way till it snaps into position, both opening and closing. A half stop is when you have the blade snap into position at a 90, and when you both open and close it. See how it springs into position there? You can usually tell a knife that's got a half stop because the blades are going to be flat on the back. It's going to be squared off. Whereas a knife that doesn't have a half stop is usually going to be rounded in the back. See how those blades are rounded there? Where again, the mini trapper isn't going to be rounded like that. It's just going to be cut off completely square. And so that's what gives it the half stop detent. A lot of people prefer it. A lot of people feel that it's a safety feature. If you bump the blade, it'll go into the 90 without chopping your fingers off. And that is something to keep in mind, and we might come back to that here shortly in this video. The two blades you're going to get on the mini trapper. Your main blade is going to be a clip blade, and I believe that roll holds steady all the way across the line. It's a very neat looking clip blade in my opinion. You've got a point right here above the nail nick. You've got a swoop that comes around to the tip of the blade, and then you've got this nice edge that works its way all the way around. You get a flat edge from about right here on, and you've got this nice round at the tip. It's a very useful blade, works very good. You'll notice that the blade tip is basically at the top of the blade itself, so it's got lots of strength behind it, and it performs really well. You can see how the blade stock thins out as it goes to the tip. Notice though the angles on it. You got a point behind the nail nick, you got a swoop going up to the blade, you got a steady curve coming down, and then you got a point on the nail nick. Works really nice, and it looks really nice. The handle on the mini trapper is so mild that really makes it look slick, I think, having a more extremely shaped blade like that. Your secondary blade, as with most historical trappers, is going to be a spade blade. But there's a few things we need to notice. It's got the same style kick. Notice the blade is thick all the way to the tip. That gives you a little thicker, sturdier blade, if you're going to use that. Also, you'll notice the tip is not quite as pronounced. It's still sharp enough to pierce through plastic or whatever you need it to, but it's not quite as pronounced. So that's a nice variation. Other than that, the basic edge of the blade is basically the same as the clip blade, if we compare these here. Notice you can't hardly see the clip blade at all if you look on the spade blade side. If you look on the clip blade side here, you're going to notice the only place where there's any variance at all is going to be that the spade blade has a little sharper angle, has a little more metal on it right here where the bend comes around. Another thing is the main blade on the mini trapper is more or less comes straight out of the handle. Not perfectly straight, but it's pretty close. The spade blade cants downward. It cants slightly forward as it comes out of the handle. Let me illustrate that. So this is a classic case full-size trapper, and we're going to do some comparison here in just a minute. But nevertheless, if you look at its spade blade, you'll notice that the blade is in line with the handle. And you can see when you lay the mini trapper up beside it, and that's not true of the mini trapper. It cants forward. I'm going to jiggle the phone a little bit here as I move it forward, just so y'all can see that. But you can see how the blade on the mini trapper cants forward, where the blade on the full-size trapper is more or less completely straight. Now, that does a few things for the mini trapper. One, it makes that blade unique from the other one, and it makes it good when you're cutting through rope or when you're doing some pull cuts. It really makes it comfortable, and it makes it a good blade for using such as that, so I really like that blade. Anybody who isn't into spade blades needs to try out the spade blade on the mini trapper. Now let's do a quick comparison to the full-size trapper. Case's full-size trapper has been one of the most traditional and classic knives in history. They normally come in somewhere around 4 1/8 inches. They normally have two blades, a clip blade and a spade blade. And depending on the handle material, they can range anywhere from 3.60 right on up to 4.00 ounces. So they're a heavier knife, they're a longer knife, and they are overall just a bigger knife. but they hold the same basic shape as the mini trapper does, and that's why when Case redid the design on the mini trapper, and they redid the design on it somewhere, oh, I'm guessing off the top of my head here, I don't know the exact year, it's somewhere in the 70s, I believe, going into the early 80s, where Case redid the overall design of the mini trapper. But you can see how similar the handles are, and you can see the blade shapes. But you'll notice that the blade shapes on the full-size trapper, in my opinion, are kind of mild, just kind of plain, where they're more extreme on the mini trapper. These are the clip blades. These are the spade blades. And so you can see there is a large size difference, but many people feel that the full-size trapper is a little too large to carry in their pocket every day, and I completely understand that. And that's why the mini trapper is a popular knife. Now, whereas the mini trapper is smaller than the full-size trapper, it is in no way a small or mini knife. At 3.5 inches, it has plenty of handle to grab onto the knife well. I wear a large or an extra large glove, and you can see I can easily hold onto this knife. And it's got plenty of blade at 2 3/8 inches. And so whereas it's called a mini trapper because it's smaller than the full-size trapper, it is in no way too small of a knife or an uncomfortable knife to use. Now let's talk about some of the things that make the mini trapper a great starter knife. If you're getting into traditional knives, or specifically case knives, the mini trapper is a great first knife because of its simplicity. There is not a simpler knife to use, Harley, than a two-bladed jackknife. A single-bladed jackknife might be a little easier, but really not. Just depends which blade you grab. You just grab it, open it up, use it to cut whatever you need to cut, and fold it back up, put it away. It's so simple. It's self-explanatory. 2 back springs, brass liners, bone, 2 good blades. The blades are about the same length with a slightly different shape. The simplicity of the mini trapper makes the knife beautiful, makes the knife great. Another thing to consider that I think makes it a great first beginner knife is going to be the strength. Because of the way that this is assembled, with these brass liners, and having that big liner coming down the middle, the mini trapper is a strong knife. This knife ain't going to be busting or breaking on you. It doesn't have little flimsy steel. The blade stock is big enough without being too big. And again, if you need a smaller slice of your task, use the clip. If you need a harder use task, use the spade blade there. Keep one blade sharper than the other if you want to, or use one blade for food tasks, the other blade for other tasks. There's all kinds of things you can do with a two-bladed knife that I think make it a good option for somebody first getting into traditional knives. If you're somebody who's been into modern knives, you understand the pocket clip and the locking mechanisms and all that kind of stuff. Well, with a knife like this, you're going to understand the simplicity, the benefit of having 2 blades, the simplicity of opening and closing a slip joint, and the comfort of the way the knife is designed itself. It's a great knife to get into case knives with. The next thing to consider is going to be the variations. There are a lot of variations with mini trapper. Not too many, just enough. You can get bone handles. You can get synthetic handles. You can get it in synthetic like this yellow right here, or synthetic like this black. And then you've got all the different bone colors and all the different options. But for the moment, let us notice you can get different blade steels on the mini trapper. This one is in Case's old CV steel. If you go out and buy a new mini trapper, it's going to be in their CS 1095 steel, which is a great steel. But you can see this has developed a patina from planting potatoes with it. Most of their mini trappers, as with most case knives, are going to come in the stainless steel variety, like this one right here. Going to be the same blades, but it's just made with a different kind of steel. As you can see, it has no patina. So you get some variety there. And that variety is good for somebody who's first getting into case knives, because they can start a collection if they want to of mini trappers with different blade steels, or different handle materials, or different handle colors. They make enough different kinds of mini trappers that you could even collect it by shield type. I've got one with an arrowhead shield. I've got the scroll shield, the Case XX USA shield. There's all kinds of different shields. This is what the arrowhead shield looks like. I have one with this shield on it I didn't bring out. But you can get a lot of variation. The next thing is that they make this particular mini trapper. You're going to notice that it has the exact same main blade as these other knives do, but that secondary spade blade has been switched out for a Warncliffe blade. Now, there are a lot of people out there, for some reason, who don't like the spay blade. Now, I understand it doesn't have as much of a tip on it. Some people don't like the history of it, but I like it as a blade. But nevertheless, for those out there who don't care for it as much, or just love Wharncliffe blades, you can get this variation of the Mini Trapper, where you get a nice Wharncliffe blade, and it's a really sharp-looking blade. I'll show you the blade that's traded out, the spay blade, for the Wharncliffe, so you can see the difference between them, to see if maybe if you're looking to get one of these, which version you might want to get. You can see they're very similar. It all comes down to the shape of that secondary blade. Spay blade's going to be just a little bit longer. Not much, but just a very little bit. It's got a different shape and so on. Now, you're going to recognize the Wharncliffe Mini Trappers because it's going to have a W after the 7. That stands for Wharncliffe. Also, I do need to introduce this kind of bone. This is called bone stag. Case does a different kind of jigging on this bone to make it look like make it look similar to stag. It don't look identical, but often it causes the handles to be a little wider and a little more natural looking. Over like this green knife here. This green knife is a pocket worn knife, and so it's been sanded a little more than usual, so it's a little thinner. So again, versatility. You can get a wide handle knife or a skinnier handle knife, a Wharncliffe blade or a spay blade. They even make single-bladed Mini Trappers out there with Wharncliffe blades only, or regular blades only. There's a lot of variety when it comes down to Mini Trappers, and I think that makes it a great option for somebody just starting off. Another thing I want to talk about is the ergonomics. In my opinion, the Mini Trapper is one of the most ergonomic case knives that they make. And that is owed to a few things. The round bolster on the bottom feels good in the hand. The smooth back feels good in the hand. And the main thing is this tang right here. Where the kick sticks down, your finger fits in there perfectly. You put your thumb on the back, and it is extremely comfortable. The blade is not too long. If you want to, you can stretch your finger out and use it as a depth gauge when you're cutting. And so this knife feels good in the hand, whether you're cutting down, cutting sideways, or if you're cutting towards you. It's comfortable in almost any position you want to hold it in. And that's true of both the spay blade and the clip point blade. There are no hot spots. It's extremely comfortable to use, and the ergonomics are great in the hand. It's also very comfortable in the pocket. It feels great in the pocket. Now, the last thing that I want us to consider is going to be the availability. The Mini Trapper is one of the easiest case knives to get. It's one of the most available case knives. Just about any hardware store that sells case knives or any pawn shop that has any case knives is probably going to have a Mini Trapper. Again, it may be the yellow Delrin versions, the lower end ones. Lower end as in terms of handle material not being as expensive. Extremely sturdy knives. They would look just like this one, just a smaller version with a carbon steel blade and a Delrin handle. One of the best user knives. If you can find one of them for under $45, great buy. Certainly worth getting. You may not be able to find one of these bone stag ones or something like that, but you should be able to find some sort of Mini Trapper, which would be an absolutely great knife. The handle material is a matter of preference and collecting and such. A yellow-handled Mini Trapper is just as good as a bone one when it comes to use, just not as much for collectability. But before we end out here, let us note a few other knives. We're going to compare them to the Mini Trapper so y'all can get a basic idea of the size of the Mini Trapper if you don't have any experience with it. Here is the 18 pattern Stockman. Here is the 54 pattern Trapper. Here is the Sodbuster Jr. Here is the 087 medium jackknife. Here is the mini swell center or the Coke bottle. And here is the 032 Texas Jack. Here is the 005 pattern, the one hand razor. And here is the 20 pattern Case Peanut. So that's how the Mini Trapper compares to some of the other Case's knives, and that's why I think this is a great beginner case knives. Y'all comment down below. What do you think's a great beginner case knife? What are your opinions of the Mini Trapper? Y'all have a good day. Thanks for watching, and keep your knives sharp.